Well, hello and welcome to News9 Facebook Live with me, Adarsh Vepachedu. The reason why I've come out today and decided to interact with you is the fact that India has reported the highest spike in the number of COVID-19 cases. We're talking about how in just a span of 24 hours, that is up until 8 a.m. this morning, we've recorded close to 8,000 new positive cases of COVID-19. To be precise, it is 7,964 cases of COVID-19 and 265 new casualties. So not just are the number of cases in a single day that have really spiked to such an extent, but also the number of deaths has increased to quite an extent. I say this because in the last several days, the number of deaths has stood anywhere between 140 and 170 or 180. But in the last 24 hours, you have a new trend where India has recorded 265 deaths. Yes, most of these deaths are being reported from Maharashtra, which continues to be badly battered and bruised by COVID-19. But yes, the numbers are simply alarming to say the least, both when it comes to the number of fresh cases and also when it comes to the number of deaths that are being reported in the last 24 hours or so. If I were to just run through a few numbers, at this point in time, the total confirmed cases in the country stands at 1,73,763. And the number of deceased is touching the 5,000 mark, currently at 4,971. So yes, when it comes to the fatality rate, the number of deaths, when it compared to the number of COVID-19 positive cases that are coming to light, it is lower than the global average. We are sitting at 2.86%. So lesser people are dying for any given number of COVID-19 positive cases compared to the rest of the world. But that seems to be the only silver lining. And the other silver lining at this point in time, the other good thing, if we were to say, is that the number of active cases are slowly dropping. That only suggests that more and more people are recovering on a daily basis. So that's where things stand when it comes to the numbers. And yes, as I was saying, in the last few days, only about 140 to 170 deaths per day that India used to record. But suddenly we have recorded in the last 24 hours in excess of 200 deaths coming in from across the country. Now, when it comes to Maharashtra, out of these 265 odd deaths, I was just mentioning as to how Maharashtra has the lion's share, almost half of it. 116 of the deaths came in from Maharashtra alone, which currently has a staggering 62,228 positive cases of coronavirus in one state alone. So almost 2,100 people, 2,098 people from Maharashtra have already lost their lives to COVID-19. The other city, state that is really bearing the brunt of COVID-19 at this point in time when it comes to the numbers, of course, is the national capital, Delhi. You're talking about how 82 more deaths were reported in the last 24 hours or so, which is also one of the highest tallies when it comes to the number of deaths coming in from the national capital. So when it comes to Gujarat, that happens to be the third state recording the highest number of deaths in the last 24 hours again, with 20 deaths coming in from the West Indian state. At this point in time, 15,934 confirmed cases of COVID-19. So that's what numbers really look like. And while you're at a very crucial stage of the ending of lockdown 4.0, and we're beginning to think as to what will happen in the fifth phase of lockdown, the bottom line really is the number of cases are not coming down. Whether the easing of restrictions in lockdown proving to be really helpful, yes. On one hand, you have businesses that are coming back on track. People are making money. The bottom rung people are able to make ends meet. But when it comes to the number of cases that are getting registered on a daily basis, it is only seeing a spike day after day after day. So how do you really strike a balance between a lockdown and yes, easing of the lockdown, and when it comes to the number of lives that we are losing due to COVID-19, and also the number of lives that are continuing to get affected due to the lockdown. So this is a balancing act that the Modi government will have to really play out, because today happens to be the last day, or let's just say the penultimate day of the lockdown 4.0. It ends tomorrow, and starting day after, you may as well have the fifth phase of lockdown that will come into place, which will in all likelihood see more relaxations. But how efficient would that be, and how fruitful will that be? Yes, businesses will begin to spring up, and money will begin to flow. But what about the COVID-19 cases? How will the government be able to ensure that the number of cases do not continue to spike in such a manner, in the manner in which we've seen in the last 24 hours, both the number of deaths and the number of positive cases? So this again is a pertinent question as to what the Modi government will do. So yes, if you've left a few comments for me and a few doubts as well, I'd like to quickly flip out my phone. Maybe you have a few doubts about what is going to happen once you have the lockdown almost being extended. So in all likelihood, we will see an extension of lockdown 5.0, and as we've seen from the beginning, in the fifth phase of lockdown, we might as well see a few more relaxations to the lockdown. But yes, there are a few concerns as well as to what about the number of cases. So there's the first question that I see is, tell me about the reopening of gyms. Well, gyms like malls and shopping complexes and swimming pools are in fact waiting for that all-important green signal permission from their respective state governments. As we all know, the central government gives out the guidelines, but the state governments, the respective state governments, can go ahead and almost tailor-make those guidelines for their respective states depending upon the circumstances, but they're not allowed to dilute any of the guidelines given out by the center. So the center, while it has been tight-lipped, it has clearly said for the fourth phase of lockdown that gyms will not be open. When it comes to the fifth phase, you already have a situation in the state where various gym owners have appealed to Chief Minister B.S. Yediyurappa to let the gyms open, and they're also taking several measures on ground, like letting only 15 to 20 people in at a time. All gym members need to bring their own water bottles, their own towels, and social distancing has to be followed. Gloves have to be worn. So a few measures are being taken by gym owners on ground. They're all very positive that from day after tomorrow onwards or so, the state government will be letting the gyms to function, much like how they've almost allowed temples to function. So yes, we may as well see gyms opening up. What about international flights from Bengaluru? That's something that's a long shot at this point in time. We've just on the 25th of May reinitiated the domestic flight operations. So the whole fact that it is the international travel that has brought coronavirus into the country cannot be ruled out, and hence very little possibility of international travel, international flight travel being permitted in the fifth phase of lockdown. So yes, if you want to move to another country for a while, or maybe somebody else wants to come to India, then yes, it is not going to happen anytime soon. I would like to just call a spade in this matter. Another thought coming in, nothing will happen. We will have to live with COVID-19. This again is an ideology that is being accepted more and more by people, researchers, scientists, governments, and even the World Health Organization. We've had several such entities come out and say that COVID-19 is going to be a part of our lives, and it's all about how we learn to live with it. So yes, that again is an ideology that a lot of people subscribe to. What about tuition classes? Again, when it comes to education, this is one sector that has taken a big hit. When it comes to teaching students, schools and colleges are adopting to virtual classes at this point in time. So if in case you're a tuition teacher, then you can probably go ahead, connect with your students via Skype. That would be the only way, because again, if you were to conduct tuitions, let's just say at your house, then it essentially means a lot of students coming together and social distancing given a miss. So any kind of education, so to speak, in the usual way of classrooms, or let's just say tuitions at a house, is not going to happen anytime soon. It is all slowly and steadily switching to a more virtual mode of teaching. So that's where things stand right now. What about malls and cinemas? Again, this is a question that a lot of people have in their minds. Just like I spoke about gyms, even malls and cinema theaters are all gearing up. They're all very optimistic that once lockdown 4.0 is over, once it is time for lockdown 5.0, we may see some sort of a leeway, some sort of a relaxation when it comes to both malls and cinema theaters. When it comes to malls, you have several mall owners, in fact, going ahead installing thermal screening equipment outside their malls, at the entrance points, that is, and they're also ensuring that their premises are cleaned up. They're also trying to put a system in place where only limited number of people are allowed into the mall at any given point in time. So measures are being taken by various mall owners, but they need that green signal from the state government. But it also remains, if the central government were to come forward and say that malls, gyms and cinema theaters, none of these entities will be allowed to open, then the state government cannot go ahead and dilute these guidelines. It's only if the central government almost gives some sort of a relaxation for all these entities, then the state government can go ahead and give it a second thought. Another question, are the shops open tomorrow? Yes, again, as you may have realized, if you go outside, you have quite a few shops open. You'll at least be able to gather all your bare essentials. But you're asking about tomorrow. Again, that's a pertinent question. It just struck my mind that tomorrow happens to be the curfew day again, the Janata curfew day. Sundays, every Sunday, you will see a complete blockage of sorts. You will not have any shops. No offices will function. So what we saw initially when Prime Minister Modi came out and asked for a one-day Janata curfew is what is being followed every Sunday right here in Karnataka. So yes, shops will not be open tomorrow. You better shop today or wait till Monday. That's my small suggestion. And yes, when will the government interviews resume? The central government at this point in time is really not looking forward to employing new persons. Their entire energy and focus is really focused behind ensuring that the COVID-19 pandemic is tackled at the earliest, except for those government services which are very essential. Over there, you may have a few vacancies, or you may have the government really signing up a few people. But when it comes to the usual method of vacancies being filled up, interviews getting resumed, not right now. So, are the timings going to remain from 7 to 7 from June 1st? Well, not sure if I get this question, but yes, when it comes to the night curfew, we still have the night curfew from 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. That will continue. You're avoided, you're in fact objected. You're not supposed to go out of your houses, and shops are also not allowed to function after 7 p.m. until 7 a.m. in the morning, and that very rule will apply as well. What about college fees? Yes, a few such questions being raised by a lot of concerned parents, and it almost is left to the colleges. But yes, the education minister also has to really step in and see as to whether what should be done with the fees that are already paid, whether virtual classes will be held, if virtual classes are not held, whether these fees will be reimbursed. These are again nitty-gritties that hopefully the government will be able to get into. When will trains resume? Well, at this point in time, you have a few trains that are already plying from point A to point B. This is apart from the Shramik trains that we're talking about. You have a few special trains right from the class of Rajdhanis, Durontos, AC trains, essentially running from point A to point B across the country. So you can go ahead and book your ticket. So that's very much possible at this point in time. Another question that says, any more relaxation for people to come from Tamil Nadu to Bengaluru? Not really at this point in time. Well, interdistrict travel, while it has been permitted, when it comes to interstate travel, it is left to the individual states and individual governments to go ahead and confirm as to what they want to do about it. If only 2 states are willing that all right, travel can be allowed, then only then you can have travel being allowed. So you're talking about how Tamil Nadu to Karnataka. So in this particular case, you need to have both the states, that is Tamil Nadu and Karnataka, who should be willing for that bus or for that mode of transport to come from one state to another. Only then you will have a transport that will be possible. This, in fact, was one of the guidelines given out in Lockdown 4.0. Another question pertaining to the government recruitments, not really happening at this point in time. And a few questions about fees as well. What about the education institutions? Taking a hit already. Students, their syllabus is really lacking at this point in time. Studies are not happening at the pace they usually do. So it's all really switching virtual. That's what I would say. Any more relaxation for people to come from Salem to Bengaluru? Yes, if only both the states are willing for that particular travel. What about Sunday curfew? That will be applicable. Tomorrow is Sunday and there will be curfew. Janata curfew will be applicable tomorrow. Yes, when are malls opening? We'll have to wait and see. So pretty much I've covered most of the questions that you've posted for me. And one only hopes that the kind of numbers that we're seeing on a daily basis, especially in the last 24 hours, this record is not breached. So it all is left in our hands. We as citizens have to be responsible, stay at home and stick to Namaste. That's really the way to go forward. Many thanks for joining me on this brief interaction. This is Adarsh Vepachedu signing off.